Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. I'm your DJ and host, Sam Wilson Jr., and I'm here to bring you the history genre of black music: gospel, jazz, blues, old school classic soul, old school hip hop, today's hip hop and R&B, Caribbean, Latin, Afrobeat, Afro-Latina, blue-eyed soul, disco, go-go, line dances, and the Lost 45s. So come with me as I take you on to a trip to the history destination genre of black music, right now on the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. Welcome to the Black Soul Music Experience. I'm Sam Wilson Jr., and I have a special guest on my podcast. This lady that I'm about to introduce represents the state of Texas. She sings all music genres: gospel, jazz, house, and country. I got a chance to check out her videos on YouTube, which includes the remake of the late Astrud Gilberto, Agua de Beber, and the remake of Maria Muldaur's Midnight at the Oasis, which I got a chance to download the song from iTunes. So please help me welcome to my Black Soul Music Experience podcast, Miss Pamela Pantea. Hi, Pamela. How are you?
I'm doing well, Sammy. How are you?
I'm doing fine, and you? Welcome to my podcast. Glad to have you here. And yes, you're from Texas, and I'm here in the NYC.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, so it's good to have you here, and we're going to start the interview. So, America doesn't know who you are, the world doesn't know who you are, but as I said, this is my first time interviewing a new artist. So, let's begin, shall we? Now, I mentioned you're from the state of Texas. What
Correct.
city or county were you born in the state of Texas?
Actually, Dallas, Texas. Big D.
Oh, okay. Dallas, Texas. Okay. Every time I think of Dallas, I think about my late maternal great uncle who's from Texas.
Oh, really?
And yeah, either is Dallas Fort Worth or Dallas, the other way around. So I know that my
Yeah.
late great uncle is from the state of Texas.
Okay,
Now,
cool.
yes. Now, were your parents in the music industry or did they had 9 to 5 day jobs?
My dad, he dabbled in music a little bit, but it never really took off. So he decided later on to start his own radio broadcasting station. He did a show called Business and Law for about probably almost over 40 years, stationed out of Dallas and Nevada in Las Vegas. But my mother, she was a homemaker, so she stayed at home until I have two younger siblings. It's three girls, and when we were old enough, she started working in a school cafeteria in the summertime. So dad dabbled in music, but mom didn't at all.
Now, which high school did you go to?
It was Skyline High School here in Dallas. It was they called it at the time in the '80s a magnet school. That which they had different types of nationalities come, and they had different types of classes you could do, like either auto mechanics or cosmetology, which I took in high school when I was younger. I took cosmetology and got my license as a hairdresser in my early teen years.
Which college did you go to?
Actually, I never went to college. I graduated from high school in 1985. Before I graduated, I received my license as a cosmetologist in 1984 when I was, how was I? I guess I was 16. So just pursued a career in cosmetology, really, but never went to college.
Now,
That's
who
about
did you
30
want
years.
to? Yeah, I'm sorry. Who did you want to be when you grow up?
I really never wanted to uh, be anyone, or I would look at fashion magazines. Really, I love fashion. As a young child, I read. My dad actually taught me to read when I was 3, so I read a lot and looked at a lot of magazines, read a lot of books. But the one person who inspired me as far as maybe wanted to take some of her attributes was that model Twiggy in the 60s. I was born in 67, so her fashion, she was like a huge icon at a very young age. Her fashion was, she was so small, of course, but I loved her fashion sense and how she dressed. So if anyone, I would want to have her clothes when I was younger.
Now, how old were you when you started singing around the house?
Oh God, we were probably, my siblings and I was the oldest, so I'm thinking way back as far, I was probably about 7 or 8, and you'll like this. The first song I remember us really singing was that Rick James song, Mary Jane. My mother bought, she let us buy that record. She didn't know what he was singing about, but she let us sing along with that song. So a lot of R&B. We sang, heard a lot of Barry White, Aretha Franklin, um, a lot of Earth, Wind, and Fire too. I mean, they were incredible. They're still, but they were incredible. So we heard a lot of that around the house growing up. That's what we sing along with.
Was being a singer your calling?
Actually, no. No, we grew up in church here in Dallas. I sang in the choir. Wasn't really that great. There was a young boy I remember. He had a voice like an angel, and he would sing solos, and of course the kids would sing in a backup for him. But that wasn't my calling at all. I sang okay, but I wasn't that great at all.
Now, you mentioned you sing in the church choir. What was the name of the church that you and your family members were belonged to?
I believe it was called. There were two churches, but the one I remember uh, was called Community Bible. It was a non-denominational church. I believe it was in Oak Cliff. I don't think it's still around now today, but it was a non-denominational church. We went there with our grandparents, probably for about maybe 7 or 8 years, I believe.
Now, growing up, who were your favorite musicians?
My favorite, it was Shaka Khan in the beginning, when I was a really young child. But in the 1980s, that's when that British invasion came about again. Because in the 60s, of course, I wasn't around when the Beatles and when they showed up. But it was when the Police, Duran Duran, the Smiths, all these artists who had this different sound that was really incredible. No one ever heard music like that. And there was a show called Friday Night Videos. It aired, I think it was pretty much around the U.S., but I would watch it. It was in Dallas. It would come on at 12 midnight and end at 1 o'clock in the morning. And they played all those 1980, like Madonna when she was coming up, all the 1980s underground music. And there was a sound that I was intrigued by, especially the Police, because it was a trio, as everyone knows, but they had the sound of a big group, which was incredible. And I started doing background research about that group and saw that Sting wrote a lot of those songs that they did. And then, of course, he went on to do other things. But the Police really were they inspired me more, I think, than almost any artist because they were so different.
Now, I remember the show Friday Night Videos. It came on every Friday night on NBC right after Johnny
Okay, so it
Carson.
was
So,
nationwide. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
it was nationwide. And you mentioned the Police, and Sting was the lead singer. So, you had two British men. I believe you had Sting and Andy Summers, and you had an American named Stuart Copeland. and he was the
Exactly.
drummer.
Exactly.
So there were
Yes.
influences were Caribbean music. So I can
Yes.
hear, the background of that sound. So they were influenced by that.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Now, speaking of that, who were your musical influences that had inspired you to sing?
Well, let's see. There were so many. When I first started singing, I was singing in my home as an adult. Probably, I want to say, middle 40s when I started singing. And I have to say this: the Lord started. He started um, guiding me to start singing at home, and I started singing gospel and mainly country gospel. My dad loved country music. Um, he would play it in the house a lot, and especially what was the guy who did the black man who did the country music? You remember his name? Oh God,
Was it
he was a
Charlie
famous
Pride?
Charlie Pride. Yeah, Charlie Pride. Yes, my dad played him a lot, so I would hear Charlie Pride a lot, and so when I started practicing at home, probably I want to say going on maybe almost 9 years ago, I started singing country gospel. And I noticed that my voice was changing. And you can practice all you want, but you can practice. If you're not a good singer, you're not a good singer. I mean, you'll be okay. But I noticed my voice was starting to change. And a friend of mine would come over, and she was astonished that it was getting smoother, more professional. So I kept doing that, and then I knew it was right to start recording gospel and country gospel, but I didn't sell it. The Lord told me not to sell the gospel. He said just sing and record it. Whoever wants to download it, they can download it for free. Started doing that. I think I've recorded maybe 23 gospel songs, and um, so I continued to do that. But then I knew it was a friend of mine said, Pam, you need to go see, get out there and start doing open mics, to start singing live. You need to get it out there. I said, okay, that's fine. So then I started singing country gospel live at certain venues in Plano, Texas here. And then the Lord directed me to start singing secular music, which I never thought he would do that, but no, the Lord have you do anything he wants you to do. And he directed me to start singing Sting songs because I knew his songs. I knew the rhythm of his stuff when he started doing jazz, when he branched out to the jazz genres. I started singing at an open mic here, and I'm now in Frisco, Texas. People would come up to me and ask me where else was I singing, and I said, well, really just here. And they're like, are you kidding? How long have you been singing? So I had total strangers I never met encourage me to continue to go on because they said I was that good, which I was shocked because I didn't know I couldn't hear what they heard. I knew I wasn't horrible, but I couldn't hear what they heard. So then this continued on so until the day, and now the Lord directed me to start writing my own music. Actually, two friends told me I needed to start writing my own music, and I just started that about probably 2 months ago. So it's been kind of a whirlwind.
Mm, I can see that. Now, before you started your singing career, did you had a day job? And if so, what was your first day job?
Really, first day job was working in a salon, predominantly working in black salons in the summers while I was still apprenticing, when I was still in cosmetology school. But then I got my first job, real job, as a hairdresser. At first, I was an assistant, an apprentice, at a salon in the Galleria here in Dallas. It was a predominantly, it was a salon that the people came from Detroit, Michigan. They pretty much gave up everything, started over, and moved to Dallas in I want to say it was 1983. I got there in '85 after high school. And by the time I got there, those hairdressers were well established. Dallas was really booming in the '80s then. The Galleria was just being built, so a lot of celebrities would come there, stay at the hotel, the Westin Hotel there. So I worked as a hairdresser there in this salon for 12 and a half years.
Now, you mentioned, as we mentioned earlier, that you sung so many genres. How's your singing voice matches those music genres?
As far as I mean, the jazz or um,
Yeah,
I
everything.
have a I could tell I had a voice for country gospel first of all, um, and then as I started to kind of dabble in more and more, I could people would tell me my voice I had a similar sound to Nina Simone. Actually, in the Maria Mulder, who did Midnight at the Oasis, I had a really good friend, Sarah Prey, and another friend from an open mic in Louisville. They told me you need to do her song. You need to listen to that song. You could do it and probably add to it a little bit, add more to it. So I did, and they were right on. And I'm thinking also too. Uh, it was Maria Mulder and also Gilberto. I would listen to her when I was younger on the radio. I only heard her sing in English. I didn't hear the Portuguese until later on in life, but people told me my tone was similar to hers when I would sing. So that's why I started singing, just picking up those different songs and picking those different genres. And I had to learn Portuguese from a teacher in Brazil to actually sing Aqua de Beber.
Okay. Now, speaking of that, I got a chance to check out your videos on YouTube, including the remake of the late Astrud Gilberto's Agua de Beber and Maria Maldor's Midnight at the Oasis, which I did download the song from iTunes. And you
Oh,
had
thanks.
two original ones. You had Island in the Sun and the country song, It's Not Your Hair. So let's talk about those songs and your different genres of your voices and different tastes. How did you like mix it up in those genres?
Actually, Island in the Sun is a cover by a group called Weezer. Weezer is a group. They're still around actually. They, I believe, came about in the '90s. I believe in the '90s, and actually they're still performing. Island in the Sun um, it was more rock, but when I heard it, I said, you know what? I can turn that into more of a rockabilly 1940s sound. And so I have a producer here. His name is Oz. He's in Richardson, Texas. He has a huge group of musicians that um, are in his fold. Where if I need to pull from someone, we have a great guitarist named um, uh, Aaron Kelly. So I came to the studio, told Oz what I wanted this song to sound like. They heard the original, and that's okay. This is what I wanted. I want that 1940s, 1950s hollow, almost Beach Boys sound, and that's how we came up with it. And so the country song, "It's Not Your Hair." You'll like this actually. In um, 2012, one of my best friends, who is now, he passed away, I'm going to say probably going on almost 4 years ago. When I was a hairdresser, I started doing his hair when he was 18 and I was 19 years of age. And he was studying to be a writer in college. He became a writer, started, writing some works. And I asked him, I said, hey, what if I wrote a book about the hair business, but make it more of a comedy? He said, oh, okay. He said, well, I'll see what you can do. I said, if it's horrible, just tell me and then we won't do it anymore. Well, I started writing. I didn't know I could write, but I started writing a couple of chapters. He loved it. And he was an editor also. And he's like, Pam, I don't even really have to edit much. This is almost perfect what you're writing. But the book was entitled, It's Not Your Hair. And so when I wanted to write my own song, I was reminded of the book, and it's on Amazon still too. It's doing quite well still. It's on Amazon. I was reminded of it, and I took some of the things that I wrote and wrote the lyrics for this song. So that's how it came about. So I'm going to start doing more country later, but my country is going to be more. It's going to be more comedy, not the sad, crying, dying, and going somewhere. We're going to do. It's going to be mainly. It's going to be funny, so people can relate to it, but also dance to it, and they won't forget it. So that's how "It's Not Your Hair" came about.
Mm, okay. Yeah, because like I said, when I got a chance to listen to your song, I keep saying to myself, oh, okay. You stretched out to country because, like so many singers, so many singers have started singing other genres. So you had Ray Charles, who did jazz, he did blues, he
Mm-hmm.
did country, and he did soul. And another artist, Linda Ronstadt, she
Yes.
did everything. She did
Uh
soft
huh.
rock, she did pop, she did big band and jazz, she did soul, she did country, and she even did some Latin music in honor of
Yes.
her grandfather, who is from Mexico. And
Exactly.
and also the Pointer Sisters, they would sing pop, they sing soul, they sing jazz, they'll sing a little bit of some synthetic stuff, and yes, they sung
Exactly.
country. So every group that I have mentioned, and also Lionel Richie, he did only one country song, was called "Stuck on You" from his "Can't Slow Down" LP. And
Yes.
let me tell you, all those singers that I've just mentioned, they done all the genres. And recently, I did an episode on blacks in country music. That was season 2. So after I came back home from the Smithsonian's Museum, African American History Museum in D.C., when I saw the banjo, made by us black folks from Africa, brought it to
Uh huh.
America. I said to myself, I I gotta do this episode because this was a hot button topic issue.
Yes.
When now you see some of the new country singers, Beyonce, we all know, she did a song called "Daddy Lessons" from her LP Lemonade, performed it
Mm-hmm.
with the Chicks, known as the Dixie Chicks, performed it on the CMA, and lots of country music bands were ticked off, and they're saying,
Yeah.
"Why do you have Beyonce performing with the Chicks? You should be doing hip hop. You're not supposed to be doing country." So it's like the old saying, country was made by us black folks. And we used to have a country radio station in the NYC. It was 1050 WHN, and it was all
Uh huh.
country music. And I was in the car with my late maternal grandfather, and back in 1978 he had on WHN, and I keep saying to myself, why are we listening to this? And like, we don't listen to country music here in the NYC. So if
That's
I
funny.
would have asked him, I didn't want to hurt his feelings, but if I would have
Yes.
asked him and saying, "Why are we listening to this? We ain't country." He said that country music was made by us black folks, and I said, "Okay." And then we're still, how come we're still listening to this? There's the only brother that I know in country music was Charlie Pride, the only
Yes.
brother in country music. And everything else was just all white. So when I did the episode, I said, why don't I just mix it up a bit? Bring in some new country singers, which includes Willie Jones and also Jimmy Allen and uh, Carter Shy, and those ladies, Chapel Hart, who were winners from NBC's America's Got Talent.
Uh
And
huh.
then I would throw in some of the country singers that didn't get any recognition, that had the late DeFore Bailey and Dr. Cleve Francis. And then I take it a little further, put in some hip hop in the mix. That's when I added Breland and Little Nas X, who had his number one hit, Old Town Road. It was number one on Billboard's country singles charts. And then Billboard found it out that it wasn't country enough, so they took off the song. And then Little Nas X had to bring out Billy Ray Cyrus, did the remix. Song was back on the country singles charts again. So you had that, and not just only Lil Nas X, but it was Breland. I think I mentioned Breland, and Blanco Brown had that country line dance. So I said, mix it up a bit. And then I threw in some other ones that were influenced by the late Isaac Hayes and then later Barry White. You had the late Jerry
Mm-hmm.
Reed and Johnny Cash and Dolly Parton. They were doing all that singing, not singing, but rapping and talking too. So
Mm-hmm.
then I just kind of threw it in there. So, let the audience know about it. So I said, let me do a little experiment and see how America will turn on it like, oh, okay, so country was made by black folks, okay. So it's like the old saying, what was made by us was taken away from us. So when people see and hear the truth, so they'll find out, but it's gonna take a while, slowly but surely. And I mentioned you did the remakes of Agua de Beber and Midnight at the Oasis. It kind of reminds me of the late Isaac Hayes when he
Uh-huh.
done those remakes of those songs. He would take those songs, stripped it, and stretched it as far as wide as the eye can see.
He was amazing. He was
So
absolutely
when my
amazing.
late grandfather had that Isaac Hayes LP called the Isaac Hayes Movement, it was 4 songs, too long. And I was just listening to it. I said, stop the talking, get to the singing. And, I just got hooked to it. So when
Uh-huh.
they hear about remakes of Dionne Warwick's Walk On By, 12 minutes long,
Mm-hmm.
and he did Glenn Campbell's By the Time I Get to Phoenix. So
Uh-huh.
he would did an interpretation of it and stretched it 18 minutes. It was way before we heard the 12-inch single of Donna Summer, Love
Yes.
to Love You Baby, and way
Uh-huh.
before we had the reggae music had their 12-inch singles and things like that. So I
Exactly.
was like, wow. So you did so many genres on there. So we're picking up where Barry and Isaac left off. Now, here's a question that I didn't put in there. Now, you got a chance to collaborate or perform with any other musicians or singers in any of the videos that I didn't see yet on YouTube?
Yeah, well, I have two. There was a guy. His name is God. What is his name? He's in France. Oh, I can't believe I can't remember his name right now. It's been a long week. Um, it'll come to me anyway. He contacted me on LinkedIn, and he said, "I have some beats, some house music beats. Do you think you could write the lyrics for him?" I was like, "Well, sure. I believe I can." Um, his name is Cyril. Forgive me, Cyril. It's been a long week. And I said, sure, I believe I can. No, actually, it wasn't LinkedIn. It was a Facebook vocalist page. That's where he contacted me. And I joined the page, and within like a few hours, he commented and said, hey, do you think you can write the beats, the lyrics for these beats? I said, well, just send it to me. He sent it to me, and I probably wrote the lyrics in about 10 minutes. I was in the house music movement in Dallas in the 80s. There was a club called Stark Club that was designed by Philippe Stark, and Grace Jones was co-owner. Stevie Nicks was one of the owners, and it ran for about, this club was open for about a little over 10 years, and a lot of celebrities would go there flying. Dallas was known on the map as one of the house music capitals. People would laugh because they thought it was only Chicago and New York, but Dallas was number 3, and all the new underground music was played there. And so I had I had a lot of knowledge of house music, uh, how it was, how it flowed, the lyrics. There's not too many lyrics. There's a few lyrics, but it has to flow with the sound. Wrote the lyrics for the beat in 10 minutes, sent it to him. And then we went to, he loved it. I did it on a video at home, let him hear it. I went to the studio here, and we recorded it, sent the recording back to him in France. He mastered and remixed it, and it's We did two. One song is called Wait, and the other one is called Let's Go. And it's under, we have a group name called Pam Lofi, PAMLOFI 59. And that's how you can find those two house music beats. They're very, very good. I was really amazed um, how talented this guy is. And he's actually not, he didn't do this professionally, he just did it for fun. But it's very good work. So that's one of the things that I collaborate with. I'm collaborating with another man. He's in Tennessee. He's a house music DJ, and he sent me one of his beats. I wrote the lyrics for it about 2 weeks ago. So after I'm going to do another bossa nova in the studio for myself, and then after that we'll be working on his beat. So I've done so far 3 collaborations. Get ready to do a 4th too, but that's another story.
You mentioned Grace Jones and Stevie Nicks. I didn't know that they were owners at that club that you just mentioned.
Yes,
So I was thinking
yes,
about Grace Jones, the singer, the model, the actress,
yes.
Jamaican born, and Stevie Nicks, we all knew from Fleetwood Mac. I would never knew that they would be owners of that club.
Yes.
Wow. That
Philippe Stark was a world-renowned architect. So I think Philippe Stark, I believe he was from France. So when they came to the table about opening a nightclub in Dallas, a club that's never been seen, and everyone can look it up on YouTube, on the web. It's you will walk up to the front of the club. It was downtown Dallas, and steel doors, like a red carpet, very kind of space age looking, and they had the door people there. You had to literally be picked to go in. You just didn't show up, and if they didn't like the way you looked, you wouldn't get in. So I was working at the salon in the Galleria, and when you were a hairdresser in the '80s, you were like a celebrity. You got people into the clubs, the restaurants, all that. So I started going to that club probably when I was 18. My boss's husband was a bar manager there. So we had our first Christmas party there probably in 1985. Then eventually I got on the guest list. So it was amazing. People would fly in from all over to come to that place. The line would be wrapped around the building almost. And so it was wild. But Grace Jones would perform there. She performed there a handful of times. She was kind of a diva, though. I mean, she is a diva. She would show up late, like hours late, hours. People were like, "Oh my God!" But they would stay because Miss Jones was coming. She was gonna be there, and of course she gave an amazing performance, but that woman was wild. That woman was wild. And but she was a great performer. She's a great performer. Amazing.
Mm. Well, it's like the old saying, when we want for our favorite stars, they all come up late. I said to myself, my people, my people, why? We be showing up late, showing up late.
And don't
And
care.
you,
And don't care.
yes, and house music, I would never knew they would have it down in Dallas, Texas. Not like the one we
Yes.
have up here in New York, because every club that I go to on Friday nights, the DJ will be playing house music, and in some other clubs around town in Manhattan. But I would never knew that house music down in Dallas, Texas.
Yes.
Wow, that I didn't know
So
that.
there's a movie about the Stark Club, and you can look it up on YouTube. They did a movie about the Stark. It came out, oh God, I want to say probably 4 years ago. It was supposed to come out a little bit sooner. It could have been longer than that, but they had some hiccups or whatever. But people are actually they've interviewed a lot of people for the movie, and in the movie it's a documentary, and people are like, Dallas? Why would you go to Dallas to party. What's there? It's just like cowboys and you know and horses, but it's like Dallas. But literally, even people from Germany, France, all over the world would come to this club. It was world renowned for 10 years, the longest running nightclub in history. It was incredible. And there's, it was the 80s, of course, so it was pretty wild. They had different rooms. They had a room called the Cold Bar. So if you got real, and people would come there and just dance all night. Everybody just dance, dance, dance. And it was three levels. So you walked in on the second level, and that was all dance floor. Everything was white couches, white curtains. You had your bars everywhere, and then you would go down to the stairwell, and that was the lower deck. And then there was actually even a third deck called the cold bar. So if you got real hot, you go down there, and they had it freezing. So I mean, it was very stark, very cool furniture, but the music was state of the art. You never heard that music anywhere. You heard probably New York, Chicago, but people were very amazed that Dallas had that type of following as far as house music.
Wow. When you mentioned that club, with the velvet rope and the red carpet, and that kind of reminds me of Studio 54. Now,
Yes.
I've known about Studio 54 back in the late 70s, but I've heard about it and the similarity to the club that we're talking about now with the red carpet and the velvet rope, and then you have those owners. They gotta check and see if you were shaved. Make sure you don't have no beard or no anything stubble. They would check you out. If you're not that shaven, you won't get in. And then you have those other folks, if they looking good, dressing up fine, dressed to a T, they'll get you in. And there was a documentary about that on VH1, Behind the Music, talking about Studio 54.
Uh huh.
And back then, it used to be CBS Studio 54, where they had some of the variety shows before they moved out to Hollywood. So
Mhm.
then, once I walked down West 54th Street, the Studio 54, before they have shut down, they made a movie about that. You know, it was a lot of talk about that place. Celebrities usually stop by. All the dancers, and I should say people from around the world. White, black,
Mhm.
Latino,
Yes.
Asian, Caribbean, LGBTQ. They would be at that place. But most of the other side, most of the time, they were drugs. They were substance and all that stuff that were taking place indoors. So the Studio 54 that I knew, they had a commercial back then, the night of Studio 54 on Casablanca Record and Filmworks. They will have all those disco artists that were paying tribute to Studio 54. And as
Mhm.
I mentioned, they made a movie called Studio 54 that had Nev Campbell and Ryan Felipe and Salma Hayek. It was about those days at Studio 54 before it closed its doors in the
Mhm.
early 80s. So every time I walk down on West 54th Street, I always think about Studio 54, which is now
Uh huh.
called the Roundabout Theater at Studio 54, which is now, they have some of those Broadway or off Broadway shows
Uh huh.
and everything else. So every time I think about Studio 54, I think about those days back in the late 70s. And as I mentioned,
Mhm.
I've heard about it, but I've never been in there because I was
Yes.
so young back
Yes.
then. I was only like 12 or 13 years old.
Yeah,
I
you
always
were
keep
going.
hearing about on the news about Studio 54.
Uh-huh.
But every time I be on that block, I always think about that place, Studio 54.
And I'm
Yes.
sure Stark was a takeoff, of it because it was, opened in the early '80s, and so it it really did change the way Dallas saw music, and so I met a lot of people from there who became friends ever since. More so than high school because we were all either in the arts. They were either all hairdressers or they worked in the hotel business, hospitality business. So everyone, But one thing I love about that era, there was no violence, none. It was black, whites, gay, straight, every Latino, everybody got along. If you didn't like someone or if someone rubbed you the wrong way, you just left them alone. We never saw a fight, ever. No, people didn't do that, and that's what I loved about the '80s and the early '90s. All nationalities got along, and we didn't know to hate each other. We weren't. If our parents disagreed, we weren't that way. Everyone actually loved each other, so it was nice. It was very nice. Had really lifelong friends from there. I loved it.
Wow. Mm-mm. I was wishing it will have the same similarity up here in the NYC because, so many clubs that I go to, they always got fights, if they had bit too much to drink, starting all that fighting
Yeah,
and stuff like that. I was like, oh my goodness.
yeah.
But
They never
there's so
did.
many other
Right now,
clubs, and like
it's
so many
changed
other
now.
clubs, yeah. So it's like so many other places that I've been going to. Down in the village, they have this Herbert Holler Freedom Party every first Friday. It's just like you mentioned, everybody, a whole diversity, and also Felix Hernandez. He does his show not every Saturday, but like one Saturday of the month. Everybody, all diversity, whether you're young
Yeah.
or old, if you're age 25 to 95, that will be your type of crowd. And I've been to his parties 3 or 4 times, and let me tell you, you have a mixed crowd.
It's
It is
nice.
something. More than that, I did my homework because I'm a DJ myself, and I recently did 2 DJ gigs for the seniors. So I said, let me check out Felix Hernandez and see what he does. So as I see all the seniors and people at my age and all the diversity, everybody get along. So
Yes,
that's something that I
that's the way it
always
should be.
like to see.
Yes, me too.
Now, here's a question that I always ask my guests: living or dead, who were some of the artists that you wish you wanted to meet or perform with?
I think probably all of the living for now. Definitely, what I admired about Sting, his voice was very different. I was actually I could sing along with him when I was a child because his voice was so high. He can't even hit those high notes now, but um, I would love to be able to perform with him. He's now I think he just turned 73 years of age, and that man is still rocking with a new group with a guitarist named Dominique Miller, who's been with him since his jazz era. And I read an article, and I actually heard him. I think I heard him speak on an interview briefly that what made him a better artist was the fact that he wanted to collaborate with people who were, if anything, better than him in a lot of different areas. Uh, Areas of music he's never even touched. He said that's what made him so a better artist. So I would love to be able to collaborate with him. I think it'd be the most amazing thing. Of course, I watched Shaka Khan. There's a show on YouTube where they have different artists singing in a cafe. It's like a coffee shop. I forget what it's called. I saw her doing it. Several other artists, Usher. That woman, I think she's in her late 60s, and she still sounds so good. And she just opens her mouth. And I saw years back where Diana Ross said this, and even Natalie Cole said, they said, we wish we could sing like Shaka Khan. I would love to collaborate with her. It would be amazing.
Yes. Now, here on the Black Soul Music Experience, I always ask my guests who is the top 10 R&B black artists of all time. Now, here's how it works. We do it like a countdown. So we start at number 10, who is the best singer but didn't get any recognition. Then we work our way up to number 1, who is the best singer of all time. That the singer had top 10 number 1 hits, that the album sold over 1 million copies in print, that the artist performed on American Bandstand or Soul Train or Solid Gold or the Midnight Special or Saturday Night Live, that that artist had been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or won a Grammy or American Music Award or BET Award or an MTV VMA Award, or that that artist had its primetime special on CBS or NBC or ABC, or that they had their special on PBS during Pledge Month, or that they had their live concert special on HBO. So I'm going to put you on the spot, Pamela. So we're going to start at number 10. If you get stuck, I'll help you.
Yes,
So
please.
yes, who should be at number 10?
Number 10. Wow. Oh, who didn't get the recognition that they deserved. I
Right.
believe, I believe really it was Nina Simone because she was a great pianist. Pianist. Uh, Her voice was so strong, uh, raw, and true, and she did not get the recognition she deserved at all. No way. She was an incredible artist and singer, but her piano playing was amazing, and her songwriting. And she could take a song, she could take a cover, and really make it her own. And I learned a lot from her. I also think the next one is probably Anita Baker. Anita Baker, actually read an article where they said they told her she couldn't sing. I was like, what? Yeah, told her she couldn't sing. She didn't get the recognition she deserved, I don't believe. Um,
Right.
let's see.
Because Anita Baker, not only that, but she started out in a group called Chapter 9. And I bought the Smooth Grooves CD back in the day when we had Coconuts and HMV. And when I saw the track, it says Chapter 9. The name of the song was called I Just Want to Be Your Girl. And it featured Anita Baker. I was like, Anita Baker was in that group? Before we knew her as the song Sweet
Yes.
Love, Caught Up in the Rapture,
I
Been
didn't even
So
know she was
Long,
in a group.
I would never knew that she was started in that group and then
Yes.
went on to superstardom.
I didn't know she was in the group until now. So we got Anita Baker, and then we have, I'm going to see. I believe it was also Jody Watley. Um, when I was younger, when I was mainly hanging out in the gay scene, the gay bars here in Dallas, um, she was real big. Her singles were real big at the time in the '80s, and of course, I wore my hair like hers, with the ponytail up high and the tutus. So people said I looked like her. Of course, I wasn't singing then, but she, I believe, did not get the recognition she deserved. She was with Shalimar, we know, of course, and she also was a solid gold dancer. She was an incredible dancer. And I remember seeing how when she first started singing with Shalimar, she used to get a little flack. They were jealous of her on the show. And so, we saw what happened with Shalimar, but when she went on her own, I don't think she got the recognition she deserved because she was an incredible artist, very talented, very talented.
Yes, Jody Watley, one of them, not only she was a solid gold dancer, but she was also a soul train dancer along
Yes,
with
that's right. You know
Jeffrey
what? I meant to say
Daniel.
Soul Train. Yes,
Yes, yeah, and the chemistry was there. They had their debut hit, "Take That to the Bank," and then that other guy had
I
left and
love that
replaced
song.
Howard Hewitt with "Second Time Around." Somewhere there's a
Yes,
love just for me. I mean, they had a string of hits back then, but just as you mentioned, the old saying, every member has friction.
yeah,
That had the singer, go on their separate ways. And yes, Jodie Watley
exactly.
had her single debut, and she won a Grammy for Best New Artist.
Oh,
And
that's
then
right.
the rest, back in the 90s, not that much hits back
Yeah,
in the mid 90s, and we go into the almost at the ending of the 90s. She's still performing at different clubs
yes, I
and
see
and
that.
everything.
Yeah, forgive me, but it was Soul Train, not Solid Gold. Soul Train. Thanks for
Hmm.
correcting me.
Yes.
I'm trying to say, I need to think of a. There's some underground. Let me see who else I believe was probably not who I love. I'm thinking. Let's see. What is that artist? You can help me out. Who can you think of who wasn't given much recognition?
Hmm. Another house person. Okay, Hadaway. I don't know if you know the artist, but he was known for his "What Is Love, Baby Don't Hurt Me."
Oh yeah,
They would
this
they would
guy.
they
Yes,
would they would be playing that at the clubs too, but they'll be best remembered for using that song on Saturday Night Live, or when you had
yes.
Will Ferrell and Chris Kattan.
Uh
They
huh.
would be the Dancing Brothers, and then when they get to that when they get to that bridge, they'll be dancing with the other lady. Then we got bump, 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 and the lady just screaming and leave. So
I forgot. I
Hathaway,
didn't.
we'll
And I
put
didn't.
Hathaway on there.
Yeah, I didn't know his
So
name either. I don't believe I knew his name. I'm trying to think. Who else did I hear growing up that I didn't think got enough? Because most of the ones I know they were so famous. Let me think. Oh, I can only think of like I really can't think of anybody else because they've all pretty much hit it as far as like I was thinking of some of the rappers, like LL Cool J. I mean, he made it. He crossed over a lot. I believe he got the recognition he deserved, though. Or do you? What do you think?
yeah, we'll put him at number six because he got the
Okay.
recognition. He best known for his Kangos, and
Yeah.
that was when he was first introduced. And
Yeah.
when I first saw him, when I once worked at the CBS Black Rock headquarters in New York City, 35 years ago, I saw LL Cool J, with his Kango. That's his trademark back then.
Yeah.
And later on, when, he shaved his bald head, back then, and known for his rope a dope chains, but that was LL Cool J. That was his trademark back then. And, he not only raps, but he also acts.
Yes.
He'll be in different movies and television shows. So he's best remembered. And yes, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll
Uh,
Hall of Fame for the class of
I'm also
2021. So we'll put
I'm
LL
also
Cool
thinking
J
he's
at,
number six.
yes, number six.
Okay, we're good. I'm moving along. It's not too bad.
Yes.
So I remember this is gonna sound real crazy, but I remember when I first heard, oh, what was that rap group? It wasn't the Public Enemy. It was someone, but Public Enemy. I remember hearing them. I was probably 15 years old. Now, I admired their sound. I didn't really know because I was younger. I didn't know what they were talking about. But as I got older, I started researching, what their music was all about. But they had a sound that was pretty incredible, and they used to actually play their music in the Start Club. Not in the Start. They used to play in a place called Club Clearview here in the '90s. They played a lot of the rap that was with LL Cool, not LL Cool J. They played Public Enemy. I'm trying to think who else they used to play. Oh God, that's when rap started really coming on more mainstream. I didn't believe that rap was going to last as long as it has. I was like, this
Yeah,
is
well,
not
you
going to
mentioned
last.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Public Enemy. We'll put them at number five because
Yes.
I met I met Chuck D also
Oh,
at
you
the
did.
CBS Black Rock headquarters. He always wears his baseball cap, so I recognize him. So Public Enemy, it's the hip hop group known for its social issues.
Yes,
So they
exactly.
came from Long Island, New York, and you hear their songs, Bring the Noise and Don't
Uh huh.
Believe the Hype. And, it takes a nation of millions to hold us back and fight the power and can't trust it. So those are the songs
That
that
was
I
my
knew
favorite.
back then. And most of the songs that I knew back then, they would segue into some little skits here and there. The one that I liked was Night of the Bassheads. So that tells a story. Back in the '80s, crack was on the scene. Back in the mid
Yeah.
'80s, so they would have that story into that music video. So crack was on the scene. So it's not just us black folks was smoking it, but business people on Wall Street, they were smoking it too.
Exactly.
And then you had those other things. So it tells a story in that music video. So once you hear it,
Yeah.
they would tell a story about it. So Public
Yes, and that's
Enemy,
what I love
they were
about it.
inducted. Yeah, they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame too. So every time I see Chuck D, you don't see Flavor Flav in the elevator, but I've
Yeah,
seen,
boy.
yep, Public Enemy. We'll put them at number five.
Yeah, so I
Okay.
also, being in the house music scene, as a teenager, let me turn this off. Um, uh, a lot of the house music DJs are not given any type of recognition at all. Those people, men and women, they are so incredibly talented because they could take songs and mesh them together. Uh, Turn my ringers off. Forgive me. And mesh them
Mm-hmm.
together and create a whole new sound. There's a house music DJ, his Frankie Knuckles. He was the most amazing. I mean, words don't even describe what he could do with melodies and taking three or four songs and mashing them together, doing a mashup. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people, a lot of DJs have evolved from just the way he would spin, and so I'm still a big fan. I believe house music. What I want to do with my house music is make it more mainstream because it's not mainstream yet. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to do is make it hit the dance charts and do more of a crossover. So with these collaborations with these DJs, it's like we could take it to the next level where it can be have airplay because house music now is still too underground, you know. So that's what I like to do. But Frankie Knuckles, I mean, he's a great artist. I never got the recognition he deserved except for underground. That's it.
Yes, and rest in peace to Frankie Knuckles. He's best known for that
Yes.
whistle song. So I kind of love
Yes.
that whistle song. That just gets you on the dance floor. Just yeah, that's the
And
whistle
then
song. That's the best one that I love.
he had a collaboration. He had a group called the Bucketheads, and it's a song. It's called "These Sounds Fall Into My Mind," and so a that's you can find that on YouTube. The Bucketheads, Frankie Knuckles, and a DJ and a Brazilian DJ, and another girl. I forget her name. They took that song and mixed it with the woman who sang that song "Homeless." What was her name?
Crystal
Uh,
Waters.
they took a
That's her
Crystal
name.
Waters song. They took Frankie Knuckles. These sounds fall into my mind. This Brazilian DJ took that with this other black female artist, and they mixed a whole new sound. And you can look it up. It's amazing. So cool.
Right.
So let me see. Who we're number four now, right? Three.
Number three. Number three.
Okay. Oh wow! I can't believe I haven't got that far. Oh, let's see. Who was not? Oh, do you know? Let me see. Who was not? Who can I think of also was a? Oh boy, I want to say Isaac Hayes. No,
Okay,
no,
we
no.
can
Barry
put
White
down
first.
Barry White. Okay, number three,
Barry
Barry
White.
White. So that's right. He's from Texas, Galveston,
Yes.
Texas,
Uh
and
huh.
then later moved to Los Angeles. So he's known for his songs, and he was a conductor for his Love Unlimited Orchestra. So
Mhm.
when my late mom bought a couple of Barry White albums and the Love Unlimited Orchestra, best known for number one hit Love's Theme, and he did some other tunes back then. He did everything: sung, arranged, composed, conducted. Had his own ladies group, Love Unlimited, and best known for here in the NYC, when we had 98.7 Kiss FM here in the New York City, they changed the format in 1994 to classic soul and today's R&B. So back then, when Kiss FM, it was just all today's R&B and hip hop, and then by December of 1994, they had the thing called the 12 Days of Christmas. So when I was hearing about that, I said, let me switch it to Kiss FM and say, oh, okay, they're playing some old school. They're playing my stuff. So that's when they changed the format. So that's when they had Barry White to do the ID and yes, Isaac Hayes and also Roberta Flack and Ashford and Simpson. Those four,
Yes.
they would do all the legal IDs at the top of the hour, and they had their own shows as well. So we'll put Barry White at number
Yes.
3.
Also, and I'm
Okay.
glad you mentioned Roberta Flack. She, someone told me, my really good friend Lauren, he told me that my tone was similar to hers. When I started singing that song, "Feel Like Making Love" live, and when I sing it, people love it, and so I believe she's number two. She was probably one of the most incredible. She's played the piano also, but she was a classical singer. Her voice is probably the most magnificent voice I've ever heard. I don't think she got the recognition she deserved. I mean, a lot of people thought she was great, but that woman was off the hook as far as her talent. Roberta Flack. I'm
Okay, so
glad you mentioned her.
all right, we'll
I
put
may.
Roberta Flack at number 2 because she's known for that song, "The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face." That was her debut song from her debut LP, First Take. And that song was later used in the 1971 movie Play Misty for Me, which
Uh
starred
huh.
Clint Eastwood and Jessica Walter and Donna Mills.
And
So
that's a
that
hard
song
song to
went to
sing.
number 1. Yes, when it
Yeah.
first came out in 1969, and then it was re released again for the movie in 1971, the song went to number 1 on Billboard's Hot 100 Pop Singles chart. She won a Grammy Award for that song. So, other hits, you had Killing Me Softly, also
Mm-hmm.
Where Is the Love, duet with Donny Hathaway. She'll be best known for those tunes and along with the late Donny Hathaway. So that's
Mm-hmm.
Roberta Flack at
Yes.
number 2.
I'm glad you
All
mentioned
right,
her
who
because
should
that.
be at number 1?
Oh my God, who's gonna be that? There's so many. Oh wow. I'm thinking. Probably I'm gonna say as a group. Um, I want to say my favorite group. I think that should be number one, not just an artist. It was the group Earth, Wind, and Fire. When
Okay,
I
Earth,
heard
Wind, and
them,
Fire. Yes.
when
Maurice
I
White.
heard them,
Hmm.
his voice, Maurice White's voice. Oh my! And then who was the guy that had the the guy in the group had the very high voice. He had a very
Oh,
high
yeah, Philip Bailey. That's the one who had the high
Bailey.
falsetto voice.
Oh my God! They when they were performed, they it was like a Broadway. It was better than a Broadway show. The the camaraderie on the stage with them, their sound was something you've never heard and no one can duplicate. Nobody can duplicate that sound. So I think number one as far as my take is Earth, Wind, and Fire. I love that group.
Okay, well, yes, Earth, Wind, and Fire, they had a string of hits back then, and their music is everything. They will play gospel message music, they will play jazz, they will play African
Mm-hmm.
music. Best known for that little Columbia instrument. I always
Uh-huh.
loved that little instrument they would use. And yes, they're known for their concerts, the little stage, everything, the props, the effects, everything. So, yes, Earth, Wind, and Fire, They were founded back in 1969, known for their hit Shining Star, That's the Way of the World, Mighty, Mighty, Evil, and Keep Your Head to the Sky, Boogie Wonderland,
Yep.
just to name a few. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees for the class of 2000. Yes, so
Wow.
we have those top 10 R&B artists of all time. Well, Pamela, thank you so much for being here on my Black Soul Music Experience podcast. It's been a pleasure
It
talking
was so
with
much
you,
fun.
and continued success. And I'll be looking for some of your other favorites on coming up on YouTube. Now, speaking of that, where can we follow you for any upcoming events, and where can we follow you on social media?
So I have a website. It's Pamela, Pamela, Pantea, Pantea.com. I'm the only Pamela Pantea in the U.S. The other one's in Romania, so I'm the only one. So you see me, that's it. I'm on YouTube. You can find me on all the streaming channels: Spotify, iTunes, Apple. I'm on 23 streaming platforms. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. So it's Pamela Pantea. But my website is PamelaPantea.com. That's where you can find all of my info and upcoming events. So I'm going to be I have a song coming out, How Insensitive. It should be on the streaming channels pretty soon. And then I'm working on a new song called, what is it called? It's another bossa nova, uh, Don't Forget Your Heart. So that'll be coming out. I'll be working on that pretty soon too. So that's where you can find me.
Oh, okay, we'll be looking for that real soon. Download all the artists that we have talked about on this edition of the Black Soul Music Experience podcast. Visit iTunes.com, Spotify.com, or purchase a CD at Amazon.com. And make sure you follow Pamela Pantea. Go look for her at her website at PamelaPantea.com. Also, look for her songs streaming on iTunes, and also look for her at Spotify. Also, look for her and follow her on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and check out all of her videos streaming online right now on YouTube. And, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to check out this interview, please subscribe by going to riverside.fm/studio/Samuel Wilson Jr.'s. Don't forget to add the S at the end, dash studio. And yes, we will be posting this episode on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And please pass it on. Thank you for joining me as I close out this edition of the Black Soul Music Experience.
Right.
Well, that's about it for this edition of the Black Soul Music Experience podcast. I'm Sam Wilson Jr. Thank you for joining me, and please tune in next week for an all-new episode. The Black Soul Music Experience podcast is sponsored by the support of listeners like you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe by going to riverside.fm/studio/Samuel Wilson Jr.'s studio. And don't forget to check out my audio podcast episodes by becoming a member and subscribe to patreon.com/the Black Soul Music Experience podcast. You can leave your feedbacks, comments, and replies by visiting my Facebook homepage. Go to facebook.com/the Black Soul Music Experience podcast. You can also tweet me on X, aka Twitter, at Sam Wilson Jr. 66. As always, parting, remember this: reach for the top, and your dreams will come true, and it can happen to you. From all of us, take care. God bless. Thanks for listening. Have a good week, and please be safe.